Morning people. So today's job is a panel swap we've got at a local church. The customer is, we've just took over this site from another company which is a big national company, and their name is very apt for a church, if that makes sense. So they're a big national brand. They do all over the country. They're very big in buying out businesses. That's how they grow. They buy out businesses like mine and they approach everybody. They recently bought out a small independent here that he's retired, and they're very well known for putting their prices up, and sort of how they do business is very much more a sales based driven company, very different to us. Engineers are actually all right. I don't have a problem with engineers. I know a lot of engineers that have got to work for them, although most of them don't really last because it's not a great company to work for here. But some of the ways they kind of do business is a bit not for me. So they'd got a fault on this panel, bit of a power supply fault, charger fault was coming up as actually. Engineer turned up from this company and said that the batteries needed changing. Didn't bother to check the power supply unit or do any readings or anything, just changed the batteries. That didn't solve the issue, so then just went straight to it's going to need a new panel. The national company quoted like £2,500 upwards for a new panel. The engineer then said he could do it for a bit of a cash deal for like £1,500, which was, or something about, there was some sort of weird conversation and the guys here weren't very happy with it. So then obviously they started ringing a few local companies, hence how we got involved. So here we are. What we did first of all was to actually take some readings from the power supply unit. I did that, noticed it was irregular, so that indicated to me that the power supply unit needed changing. So we sourced one of them. It's a Fike panel, so we sourced one of them, spoke to Fike, got the right power supply unit, because obviously there's some very specific things with their PSUs in terms of the codes on them and the age of the panels and stuff, so you have to be quite careful with that sort of stuff. Did that, got the right one, tried it, didn't solve the issue. Spoke to Fike again, does look like it is going to need a new panel. However, we are fitting the panel today for about £850. So that kind of just shows you the difference. So, and that's a pretty reasonable price, but not a super cheap price, and not a super expensive price. And hopefully it'll all go well today, and we'll get the new panel in and it'll all work. So that's what we're going to do now. So there's the panel. As you can see, it's saying charger fault. Like I say, we've done all the diagnosis on it. It is a Twin Flex Pro Mark 1. We're going to swap it with a Twin Flex Pro 2. And it's apparently a straight swap, so it should be all good. So even though it's a really simple panel swap on this one, it should be relatively simple, and all the cabling is pretty well labelled. It's still just good practice. I've just gone around and I'm just sticking zone 1, zone 2, zone 1 on things and just making sure everything's labelled up just to be on the safe side, and it's just good practice and just makes everything, means there's no mistakes. Lines up perfectly. I like to just bring the cables down, tuck all the excess behind there, leave the excess on at the minute just because I like it. Just obviously I'm adopting the panel, so taking over, so when we test it we just make sure we don't need to do anything. But yeah, I just like to tuck them all down. I like to just tuck them behind the circle like that, makes it look nice and neat. So I was just testing the batteries before I put them on. Actually running really hot. They're currently sitting charged at 4.1 amp hours. So I think the issue with the charge on this one is actually overcharging them. Right, well, we're all on, we're powered up. Just going to go into set date and time, and then I'm also just going to do a full test of the system, go around and check all the devices. Got my test key, let's give this a try. Working, perfect, that's it, beautiful. So now I've done an audible test. I'm just going to go around and do a silent test and everything, but then I'll do a few audible tests on some of the smoke devices. That's all working fine. Just grabbing the poles and a tester from the van. Just going to go and test some of the smoke
detectors now, make sure all the smoke detectors are working on the correct zones.
So 0 problems, everything's working okay. Just going through a bit of a test now. That's that beeping as it's just set off some of the devices, gone round. Everything's on the right zone, everything's working fine, everything looks okay. I'm going to go tidy up a little bit, let that do a bit of a soak test whilst I'm doing that, and put everything away, and then yeah, do the paperwork. Right then, all done. Just been chatting to those customers then, a couple of clients there. Very switched on, very wanting to know how everything works. They do all their regular monthly and weekly tests and stuff like that. Just found out, just let them know that actually they don't need to test all the core points every month. They're doing it monthly, they're supposed to do it weekly, but I think I like to see if they're doing it, they're doing it. But yeah, they've been testing all the core points once a month, and I've just said actually you get away with just one a week, so that's saved them a bit of work. They're quite happy with that. Solved the problem, no faults, everything's working fine. Yeah, they were just asking me loads and loads of questions there about when the service is due and stuff like that. Quite interesting actually, because it's a church, a place of gathering and stuff. They were wondering if they maybe could get away with like a 12-month service. Could have done, but I was saying, as a risk assessor, from a risk assessor point of view, you've got probably quite a lot of elderly and infirm people. You've got a bit of a kitchen there, you've got a place of gathering. For the sake of a service charge for not a 6-month service, is it really worth taking the risk? And they kind of agreed it's probably just not worth taking the risk. It's better to be safe than sorry. And the legislation, the regs are a little bit not very clear on that. It says that you're supposed to have a full service every 12 months, and it is recommended that you're supposed to have one done at least every 6-month intervals. Some businesses can get away with just a 12-month one. A lot of businesses can, as well, small businesses can, but I think this is probably on the side of having a 6-month service. So yeah, anyway, that's all fixed. Panel went fine, everything's working fine. Went round there, just checked everything, tested a bunch of the smoke detectors. Their service is coming up due in May, so we've got that booked in for May. We're going to be doing their emergency lights and their fire extinguishers at the same time. Really interesting point actually was that when the other company, you probably guessed, probably saw the label, rhymes with birches. When that other company come round, they would send a different engineer out for everything. So they would have a guy turn up to do the alarm, and they're like, well, you're doing the extinguishers as well? No. Oh, then the guy would turn up and do the extinguishers. What about the emergency lights? No. So they were charging for a separate person to come out each time, because the engineers they're sending out aren't qualified to do all three. Yeah, just get somebody who could do all three, guys. Simple, hasn't it? Save the customer time, save the customer a bit of money. Whenever we do all three at the same time, we always usually chuck in the emergency lights for free. Just makes sense, you know. Stop messing people about. Anyway, onwards and upwards, on to the next job now. I'm not sure what I've got to do next. Gonna nip back to the office actually, I think, catch up with a bit of paperwork. Yeah, see you in a bit.